In terms of embodiment, anything that we do where we're actually experiencing the sensation, being in the body as it's happening, feeling what's arising. If we're embodied with what we're doing, then we can call it embodiment practice. And so the reason I've shifted from what I will call a shape-based practice to an embodiment practice, it's been an evolution. It's been about moving away, first of all, from a strict regimen of these are the asanas that we should do, and we should only do those asanas. Repetition of anything for a long period of time will create damage. And then it was moving away from a linear practice, realizing that even if I change up the shapes that I'm making, if I'm only moving in a linear way, that will also not only create damage, but it limits me in all the possibilities of the body. The body's designed to move in a million different ways. We do it in our daily lives, picking stuff up off the floor, washing the dishes, making the bed, getting on and off a bicycle, in and out of a car. All of these things, we're going through a range of motion that's way beyond linear. So why don't we move the body in that way as part of our practice? It feels much more natural. The most important or empowering part of that transition is that when we're stuck in shape-based ideas, we have to use a cueing system that says where the body should be. And so we don't allow people to own their own practices because they're constantly assessing whether they're in the right place or not. Are they getting farther? Is this good alignment? Now remember, alignment's only based on a few Indian men that started practicing, about 100 years ago. And so it's got a very limited shelf life of who it's going to be useful for. But we've got this whole generation of yoga practitioners that have been limited to this structure. And so it becomes an assessment-based practice. They don't get to feel an experience of what their body wants. They might feel the experience of an asana, but within its limitations. So when we start giving people permission to explore their own bodies, to own their own body, and say whatever arises in this moment is valid. There is no right way and wrong way. There is no good alignment and bad alignment. There's only the present moment. Then we get the joy of bringing it back into the practice. Then we understand, oh, this is why we still call it yoga. We still call it yoga because we're giving people permission to have that experience in the present moment without a judgment, without an assessment. We're not trying to make it better. We're not trying to go further, go deeper, put more pressure mentally and emotionally on somebody to achieve something so that they get to own their own practice. And within that, what unfolds is all the possibilities. And then their own body can thrive because their own body and its natural, inherent intelligence is allowed to guide the practice. But what we have to do is lead them into that embodiment first. Most people don't know what they feel like. Most people feel comfortable in these shape-based practices because we live in a society that tells us what to do, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, and what's bad. And so an assessment-based practice feeds that. And so it's a huge transition for people to say, okay, I can let go of that assessment, I can let go of those shapes and start being guided from within and start having a felt sense. And then we go beyond just muscle and bone. We go into the subtle body and we go into those deeper layers of the practice. And so for me, it's so important that we're making these transitions. We're shifting from these shape-based practices, these cueing, telling, assessing practices into an embodiment practice that gives permission. It's a practice of allowing. It's a practice of holding space as a teacher, so that your students thrive within that space.